All right, guys. Well, it's Rebecca Ruth here. Thanks so much for being with me again today. Today, I have Arielle Britton with me. Hey, Arielle, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining me today. I like to just jump right in. So, Arielle, go ahead and tell us where you are and what you do in the industry.
Awesome. So thanks for having me. Arielle Britton. I currently live in South Carolina, but I've spent a lot of my time in Virginia. Just recently moved down here with my husband who's in the military. I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I've been in the fashion industry for a long time in many different facets, from pageantry to modeling to helping run a dress store. So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge in this area, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, that's I love hearing, people who've kind of moved around in the industry, I guess you could say, because I think a lot of times in the industry we kind of put ourselves in a box that, like, okay, I'm a model, so I'm going to be a model, and there's so much you can do in this industry, right? So,
Yeah.
so what did you do first? What did you start out with?
First was pageantry. I got into pageants when I was 12 or 13. And I just kind of went through the ropes of doing it because it was fun, had no idea what I was doing. And that actually is one of the things that led my mom and I to opening up a dress store. When we were shopping for pageant gowns, we felt like most of the places that we went into to purchase clothing for the pageants were more sales driven than information, and like making sure that you had the best thing for you. And it was, they were pushing specific pieces. And we really wanted to create like a safe haven for pageant girls specifically to come to, where they felt comfortable to ask questions. And even if we didn't have a specific piece that we felt was necessary for them, we'd help them find it somewhere else, because we felt that it was more important to give people the tools to be able to dress themselves appropriately per competition, depending on where they live, because different pageants in different states actually have different um, not so much guidelines, but just different regions dress differently. So we felt like it was really important. We dressed people not only across the nation, but we worked with clients across the world. And it was a really eye-opening experience, because not only does the industry of fashion change dramatically year to year, but it changes from different place. And I always thought it was so interesting, because I didn't realize how often that the industry changed until I was knee deep in it in the dress store. My favorite thing about the dress store was going to market every season. So we would go to market about 4 times a year, because we also did prom and bridal. And it was just incredible seeing how drastic styles and colors and patterns would change even 4 times out of the year. So running that dress store was really eye-opening for us in many more ways than what we were expecting.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know much about pageants, okay? So I've never delved into that too much, besides just, supporting friends who've been in them. And I'll
Right.
be completely honest. I'm very transparent.
Yeah.
So for me, pageants were just kind of like putting on a cute dress, and you go out there and you wave and you do that kind of thing. So you mentioned that you wanted your store to like a safe haven for girls. Was it just girls or women, older, women as well?
We worked from 0 to 6 months all the way up to Mrs.
Okay.
Mhm.
So like what kind of things would come up? What kind of questions? Like, I want to hear more about that, and just
Sure.
examples of how things you said, I guess, I don't know what the terminology, but like maybe the standard of the dress changes, depending on whether, I guess, you're doing like a pageant where, like, in the North versus the South, or like, is it like that?
Yeah. So first, I'll touch base on that, and then I'll kind of like go back to the beginning part where you're being transparent about pageant girls, because if you have not been in it yourself, it's hard to realize like what all goes into it. So, for the dress store specifically, one thing that we found, and again, working with different professionals in the industry, from designers to pageant coaches to directors, we were able to obtain a lot of different knowledge that a lot of dress stores we didn't feel took the time to do. So for instance, just talking about setting for pageants, one thing that a lot of people don't take into account is different stages are going to show clothes differently. So if I'm working with a girl who's doing a local pageant at a high school, we know that those judges are going to be about 5 feet away from the stage most likely, and those lights are not going to be as great as if we're talking about a national pageant. So when we're talking about like a preliminary and some state pageants, depending on where they're held, we call those 5 feet dresses. You don't want something that's going to overpower the place that you are in, or overpower yourself. So you have to take that into account. So what we like to do is, if they were a local or preliminary competition girl, we'd have them stand directly in front of the mirror and see what it looks like. Versus if we have a national level girl, we drop the lights, we take them back to the front of our shop, because we actually had a runway in our store. And we shine an LED light on them as they walk towards the mirror so that we can see the 20-foot dress. And it's a dramatic difference of a 5-foot versus 20-foot dress. And a lot of people never really took that into account, we felt like. And that also goes into the types of stones that you're using. If you're on like a smaller stage, you don't need the Swarovski crystal stoning. You can just use the little cheap plastic stones, which are typically more inexpensive. So there's a lot of things to take into account when you're talking about where you're competing. And then you also have to take account the region that you're in. Virginia tends to be, because that's where I was dressing most girls, tends to be a little bit more conservative than if a girl was competing in Florida or Georgia, you know what I'm saying? So the girls in the north tend to be a lot more conservative. So depending on where the girls were competing, depended on what types of dresses we would pull. And then obviously you have to take into account their height, their body shape. Obviously, if you have somebody that's a shorter stature, you're not going to put them in a mermaid, because that's going to shorten them immediately. And there's so many things to take into account, but it was just a constant learning. But another thing that, like you said, you've not, from the outside looking in from pageantries, it might just be picking out a beautiful dress and walking on stage. There's so many different types of pageants. I competed in the USA system, which is considered a beauty pageant, meaning that it doesn't have talent like a Miss America. But there are other categories within the competition. So there was a private interview, there was an onstage introduction, swimsuit and evening gown, and onstage question for Miss USA. For Miss America, they have changed a lot, so I'm not even going to get into that. But I was also Miss Virginia World America, and for that organization, we didn't have swimsuit, we had fitness, we had like a spokesmodel speech, and there were a lot of other facets. But something else that you might not take into account is when I won Miss Virginia USA in 2014, placed top 20 at Miss USA, just want to throw that out there. My goal during my reign was to be the most visible Miss Virginia USA that the state has ever had. I felt like the girls who had come before me were kind of untouchable, in a sense that I never really saw them out and didn't feel comfortable that I could just walk up to them and have a normal conversation with them. I felt like they were this like princess on a pedestal, what I feel like a lot of people see them as. So my goal as Miss Virginia was to bring that pedestal down to flat ground so that people could touch and feel the crown themselves, and know that it was something that they could do. During my reign, I did over 100 appearances. That's a lot of outfits. I drove 35,000 miles and helped raise over $1.5 million for nonprofit organizations through all the events that I did. And bringing that back to fashion, you have to take into account and try to like prejudge your audience, your venue, what you're going to be doing activity wise with picking out all of those clothes. And that was something we did in the store too. We didn't just dress them in gowns. We had interview, we had appearances, we had swimsuits, we had the whole nine. So there's a lot more that goes into pageantry than what meets the eye.
Well, first of all, thank you for the education.
I can talk about pageants for days, obviously.
No, I can tell you're very passionate about it. But as you were talking, I was like, okay, So the way, and you can tell me if I'm just like dumbing this down too much, but as you were talking, I was like, okay, so I'm a fashion consultant. So I was like, all right, I understand that. Getting your clients ready for the specific, event that they're going to, or, runway versus print, all those things, the lighting that you talked about. So I was like, all of that makes sense to me. What I hadn't taken into consideration is all the after stuff that you said, like driving 35,000 miles. And one thing about fashion, and like, let's say you're a model, for example, you do that runway show, you do that photo shoot, and you can kind of go about your day, right? I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what you just said, it's like you're kind of always on. And it's like, so then I started thinking about the actual royals, right? And like, I think about, we look up to Kate Middleton and, even Meghan Markle, even though she's controversial right now. But anyways, but like, they're always on. That's something I've always thought about, like the idea of always being on. And I know that they are meticulous about what they wear, how they wear it, how they walk, making sure they're representing the country they're in, their region, the people they're with. Like everything is down to like a T, because all eyes are on them and they represent something. So it is actually completely different from the fashion industry. Like I can be a model and put on, like, I'm famous for the Rachel Zoe. I'll put on like sunglasses and a big hat and I'm like, you don't see me.
Yeah, when you're a title holder, the spotlight is on you all the time. Well, and I pretty much made sure that it was.
Right. You did it more, like even more, intentionally. But yeah, so that's a big difference, because people in the fashion industry, it's kind of like a celebrity. Like celebrities choose to be seen, right? I know they all complain and that we have no privacy, but they choose to be seen. They could be more incognito if they wanted to, some of them. But in this case, yeah, it doesn't sound like that's really, as much of an option, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's really,
and I kind of have a different mindset too, where I graduated with my business marketing degree. Content is super important. And people now, that was in 2014, so 6 years ago, influencers and that sort of thing wasn't as popular. So I felt kind of ahead of the times in that sense, that all of those appearances that I did not wear the same outfit for any of them, which partly was because my mom owned the store, so I had the ability to do that. But also content wise, I wanted to make sure that when I was posting things that it didn't look like, one day I was in Virginia Beach and I did 9 appearances throughout the day. And I changed between every single one. I had a manager that was helping me with my appearances out there, Marcus, and he was like, "You're seriously changing again?" I was like, "Marcus, we already have pictures in this outfit. We need something else. Find me a restroom, please."
that's crazy. But
Yeah.
you're like hustling.
I was very fortunate that when I was at Miss USA, I got the only single room. And I had like racks on racks. I had like 2 bags of shoes. At that time we were in Louisiana competing for a little over 2 weeks, and they had given us a schedule prior to going, but there were like 4 or 5 appearances each day, and you didn't know which ones you were going to be selected for. So we had to get outfits for every single one. And then there were some that I'm like, "Please let me be on this. This outfit is so stinking cute. Please let me go on the plantation tour." I did get to do that one. That one was really fun. But that was such an experience.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Now, we don't have to say his last name, but Marcus, does his last name start with a C by any chance?
Yes.
Ooh, I think we might know the same Marcus, but
yeah. He is a stellar man. I have not talked to him in years, actually, but he was so amazing during my year to help me, because I am from Roanoke, so I didn't have a lot of connections over in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. So he was instrumental to making sure that I was super visible over there.
That's funny. Yeah, I think it's the same Marcus, because yes, I talked to this particular Marcus about, his time with beauty pageants and everything. So I think it's the same Marcus. Small world, really.
Yeah.
Small world.
It really is.
Really small world. So after that, then you went into modeling, or did you start modeling kind of in the mix of all of this?
Yeah, so modeling kind of coincided with pageantry. Obviously, for the types of pageants that I did, looks were a factor in that. And so when you're a title holder, you have a little bit more prestige to you and people want to take your pictures. So I kind of dabbled that way. And I actually, before I won Miss Virginia, I had been in pageants for a while. I didn't win until um, I, the year after I graduated college, but I did take off a semester of college to try to pursue modeling. And I found that my heart wasn't really in that. I am fairly tall. I'm 5'9", but I have a very short torso. So no matter how small I am, proportionately visually to the eye, I don't ever look as small as I am, if that makes sense. So for the type of modeling that I was interested in, the agents that I was paired with didn't work out because they would just keep telling me to lose weight. And at one point I was 115 pounds at 5'9". Like it's ridiculous to have somebody lose weight at that point, but it just visually my body wasn't what they were looking for. At the time it hit me, it was really difficult for me. But I had been in pageants for a while. I wrestled on the men's team for 9 years. So um, body image and weight loss and that sort of thing was I didn't know how to handle it mentally. And so I just like, it's taken me a long time to kind of get over that. And I took it very personally when those agencies didn't want me, when it wasn't me that they weren't looking for. It was that I did not have what they needed to fit into their mold. Um, so looking back now, I feel kind of silly for having those thoughts, but I know that God was just saying like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. So let's find what we are supposed to be doing. So I ended up going back to school, graduated on time with my class, and everything was fine.
Well, I mean, I like that outcome, but
Yeah.
um, but I mean, like it's normal, right? Like this industry is all about your outward appearance, so it's completely normal that mentally, it wears on you. And I love that you pointed that out because a lot of times, I mean, we've all in this industry heard rejection, like all of us have, and it's hard. It really is hard to not take it personally and not think there's something wrong with me. It's
Yeah.
not. So I just, like you said, I just don't fit what they're looking for this particular shoot, whatever it is, for this particular job. I'm not it. But in that moment, it's really tough to be
And
like, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me, you
yeah,
know?
especially because it physically is you, but
Right.
it's not you as a person.
Exactly.
So it's, especially as a young girl, a teenager, it's very difficult mentally to deal with.
Right, because you started pretty young. You said the pageants were pretty young. So did you have issues with that, like as a child? Because I know as a child you don't quite understand that like you do once you get older as an adult.
I feel like my experience was a little bit different because I wrestled. So cutting weight was a normal thing for me. Now, my mom did tell me when I first got started that I was allowed to do it as long as I didn't cut weight inappropriately. So, but when you're in high school, like I didn't have professionals helping me. Like it wasn't always perfect. So I just felt like I always struggled with that. But this is going to sound crazy, but when I got pregnant with Kenley, and obviously this is a long time after I dealt with those things, I was very nervous that I was going to kind of like revert back into those mental processes of not liking myself, because obviously you gain weight when you have a child, along with stretch marks and other things. I'm sure you're aware. And I was actually so proud of myself that I came out of my pregnancy loving my body even more, for the incredible things that it had just gone through, instead of hating my body for what it looked like. And I hear a lot of times, especially because a lot of people on my social media are moms, that moms are trying to get back the body that they once had. And I kind of hate hearing that because like your body has been through some crazy things that it never has gone through before. And why would you want to, like, in a sense, erase all of that? Like, why don't we focus on getting healthy bodies instead of trying to get back this body that has just gone through incredible transformations? Like, I wish, and it's so difficult, especially with how social media influences now, that you have to be perfect. And I feel like as moms, a lot of us struggle with that, like the need to be the perfect mom with the white couches and like the perfect decor and Instagram filtered everything. So that's one thing I try to do on my social media now, is like just try to be real, raw, and vulnerable, and let people know like it's okay not to be perfect, and you don't have to look and be who you are before, because you're a new woman now, and own your new womanship.
I like
Sorry,
that.
that took like a really different turn than where we were.
Hey, this is fine. That's totally fine. That's what I love, because when we start chatting, things just come out. But I think, you know, I have two children, and so after the first one, I was exactly like that. Like, get my snatch back, get everything like that. I even ran a marathon to lose the baby weight. Yes, I was like, I'm gonna run this weight off.
You do that for fun.
But then by the time my second son came along, as a society, we had started moving the direction of like, pregnancy is empowering now, and motherhood, and showing off the bellies. Like, we're not wearing muumuus anymore to hide the bellies. We're wearing the tight little dresses now, and we're wearing bikinis on the beach, which with my first son, even, I would have never done that, like, ever been out in a bikini. Like, no way. But we had started moving in that direction where everyone was embracing this pregnancy body, right? And so I agree with you. I won't say it's unrealistic, because there have been women who've done it, but yes, social media, I think, is big on that. And I'm not saying anything negative about them, but the Kardashians are famous because they appear to just snatch back. They have like 500 babies and they just are size 0 again.
When I have some friends that have done that, and I'm like, okay. So it's possible.
I do too. Like, it's just happened naturally, mostly because they throw up for the whole pregnancy. But like, some of them just have, but it's natural. It wasn't like she was out there like running 30 miles a day and not eating, and that's just how her body reacted to the pregnancy. So it's like, I love to see women now kind of embracing it and saying, instead of saying, I want to get back to that, like, let me love this. You can always improve it. Make sure you're healthy, make sure, but don't focus so much on that. And honestly, it doesn't sound crazy. And thank you for being transparent, because it was a journey I had to go through with my second one, because I didn't snatch back the same way I did with the first. And I had to just kind of love the curve, like, okay, I'm a little curvier, my hips are a little wider this time around, but I mean, I'm kind of liking it. Yeah. So that kind of thing. I think someone who's amazing for this, who's out there, is Ashley Graham. I think throughout her pregnancy, she was amazing with showing the stretch marks and it's almost like she made stretch marks sexy all of a sudden. And then post pregnancy now, I just saw her on her Instagram the other day. She did, everyone's doing photo shoots just in their house now against the wall, but her photo shoot, she had kind of this cute little thing, but you saw her post-pregnancy stomach. It's still kind of roundish and stuff, but it's like, she's embracing it. She's making it sexy, in a way. And I love seeing that. I hope that it keeps going in that direction, because I mean, your body goes through so much. It's so much, and we're not going to get into.
Our bodies are incredible,
right? And I'm not going to get on my soapbox about how I feel like every mother deserves like 50 million crowns, but like, your body goes through so much that you should be proud of it. So yeah, so I would say, so for you, mentally, the modeling was harder for you than the pageants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then I just out of curiosity, why wrestling? That's just a side question.
So, like in fourth grade or something, I did a season of cheerleading and absolutely hated it. And in sixth grade, um, when season came around, one side option had cheerleading and the other had wrestling. And I was like, I want to do that. And my dad was like, really? And my mom was like, just let her do it. She's going to do it anyways. And I it led me to meeting my husband because I wrestled through middle school and high school. I got injured in high school, so I couldn't compete anymore after my junior year, but I was still involved and managed and helped manage the rec team at Radford. And I met my husband that year, my freshman year of college.
Awesome.
We didn't
Yeah.
end up dating for like 6 more years, but
Wow. But you met him there.
yeah.
That's awesome. Cause I was like, as you were talking, I was like, wrestling. I think I've only met one other girl who wrestles. And actually, this was in the last couple months, and she was talking to me about I don't remember, but like that, obviously girls wrestling is not as popular, but I think she's saying they're like working on something, I don't know, to make it more official for girls
Yeah.
wrestling and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually wrestled on the guys team. I
Yeah.
did girl states twice, but I didn't feel like the competition was there at the time, so I enjoyed wrestling guys because it was more of a competition for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's what she was saying, because I think she was saying she wrestles with guys, but Virginia is one of the states that's trying to change that or something like that. So I was like, that's awesome. Yeah, you sound a lot like me. Like I had a lot of friends who were cheerleaders, and I love them. I'm still friends with a lot of them, and I used to be like on the sideline making fun of them, but then I was the girl who like wanted to play football with the guys, and my mom was like,
Pushing boundaries. Honestly, wrestling was one of the things that helped like separate me in pageantry. I've had like a really unique life so far, so that was one pieces that when I throw that out in interview, they'd be like, "Oh, okay."
yeah, it's like it's like unexpected. It's like wrestling. Okay.
You don't hear that.
Right, exactly. Well, Arielle, it's I really appreciate you chatting with me. Like it's been a lot of fun. I feel like I could keep talking, but people don't want to hear us talk for that long. So I'm gonna let you go, but I wanted to ask, like, how can people reach out to you?
Sure. So follow me on Instagram. It's just my first and middle name, Arielle Saige, Saige. And then I'm also on Facebook, Arielle Britton. And I would give you my email, but I prefer social media just because I check that a lot more often, working on social media. So yeah, follow me on social and send me a message. All my stuff is it should be public. So
Yeah, I mean that's fair. People don't like sending emails anymore, so that's fair.
or comment on this video and I'll get back to you there.
There we go. That's good. All right. Well, Arielle, thanks so much. Like this is a lot of fun hearing a little bit more about your your experience and stuff. And yeah, so thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.